Fair value is a market equivalent value. Fair value measurement requires the following assumptions about a hypothetical transaction involving the instrument to be valued. There is an orderly and hypothetical transaction between market participants at the valuation date under current market conditions. The hypothetical transaction occurs in the principal market for the asset or the liability. In the absence of a principal market, the hypothetical transaction takes place in the most advantageous market for the asset or liability. For a non-financial asset, fair value takes into account the highest and best use of the asset from the market participant's perspective. For example, a house so dilapidated that it is not suitable for habitation may not be readily saleable as a dwelling. It might be cheaper to demolish the existing structure and build a new one rather than to invest the amount required to make the dwelling habitable. In this case, the highest and best use of the property would be to sell it as a building lot rather than as a house. The fair value should thus be based solely on the value of the land. Three valuation techniques are widely used in determining fair value. The market approach uses the prices and other relevant information for market transactions involving identical or comparable assets or liabilities, or groups of such assets and liabilities. The cost approach uses the amount that would be required to replace the asset, sometimes called the current replacement cost. The income approach converts future cash flows of income and expenses into a single current discounted amount reflecting current market conditions and expectations about the future. IFRS establishes a fair value hierarchy comprising 3 levels of inputs to increase consistency and comparability of fair value measurements. Entities are required to use Level 1 inputs if available for fair value measurement. Level 3 inputs may only be used if Level 1 and Level 2 inputs are not available. Level 1 inputs are quoted prices in active markets for identical assets or liabilities that the entity can access at the measurement date. An example of Level 1 inputs would be the price of a company's common shares publicly traded on an exchange. Each of the company's common shares is identical to the others, and information on the prices of transactions on an exchange is readily available. An entity can readily value its holdings of the company's common shares through reference to the closing price of those shares on the measurement date. Level 2 inputs are those, other than Level 1 quoted prices, that are directly or indirectly observable for the asset or the liability. Level 2 inputs would include recent prices for similar instruments or older prices for identical instruments in markets that are not active. An example of Level 2 inputs would be yield curves calculated for corporate bonds with a given external credit rating. There may be very few trades of each company's outstanding bonds, but by aggregating data for all transactions in bonds with the same rating, it is possible to estimate market prices for each of those bonds across the entire range of maturities. A corporation's issued bonds may not trade frequently, but by referring to the yield curve for similarly rated bonds, the market price, or fair value of the bonds, can be estimated. Level 3 inputs are unobservable inputs for the asset or liability. These should be developed using the best available information. An example of Level 3 inputs would be the use of discounted cash flow in the income approach to estimate the fair value of a privately held, non-traded corporate bond. The income approach, like the replacement cost approach and any other Level 3 inputs, is only to be used in the absence of observable Level 1 or Level 2 inputs.